I believe we're hot. We're hot. Gentlemen, you ready to get started?
Yes.
All right, all right. I know we got a few more eating over there, but continue on. My name's Walter Wofford. I am one of the oldest guys in the room, or at least oldest knowing Phil. Phil was a little seminary pup when I first met him, and he was part of our Sunday school class at First Pres many years ago. How many years ago was that? 30?
25 years ago, 30 years ago. 77 years ago, yeah.
77 years ago.
He's 97 years old, Walter.
So we got to know Phil and Carla and his family along the way and have kept up. And Phil's been a part of my life ever since that, though he moved out of our Sunday school class. I've done some educational events in Jackson on real estate and other matters, and I have invited him to come and spread the word about what he's all about to people all across the United States. And I bet you over 1,000 people have come who know Phil outside this room. So he's got a bigger footprint than we might think. Now, he did invite me to go and look at this piece of scrap land up in Ebenezer some 21 years ago. He knew I was in the real estate business and I might could help him a little bit. But that land, I asked him just a minute ago, which came first, the vision or the property? Which do you think?
Property.
I would have said the property too, but he said the vision was there, and I didn't see it at the time. But we helped him get it, and it was $60,000 for the land, I think. And those 2 cabins were out there, and then what else? Was that the pond, the lake?
2 cabins in the lake.
So that was 20 plus years ago. And so he figured, well, maybe I can help him raise some money to do that next expansion. Now, Phil tells me that I was at the second deer camp. My son, it's a family event, and I hope that you can say that about you, that you can bring your family, because it's a multi-generational ministry, for sure. Anybody amen that one?
Yes, sir.
You get your kids involved, and it certainly has helped your marriage, hopefully, help you stay married, or help marriages. So tonight, this is a special occasion, and there's one common thread of everybody that's in this room, even though I don't know everybody in this room. You're a piece of work. You're a work in progress. Would anybody disagree with that? And so is Phil. Phil is a work in progress. I'm glad we didn't have perfection as our standard for our leader.
Amen.
We wouldn't find it, would we? So, Phil, he asked me to come up and shoot a video of what happened at the deer camp 2 weeks ago, and it's a short video, but I think you'll find it interesting, and you can use this video if you want to send it to other people. Now, what I'm going to do with it, so those 1,000 people that have come through Jackson and know Phil, I'm going to send them an opportunity to give to the barn raising. This isn't a pole dance barn, is it? No. It's a pole barn. You know, not everybody knows what a pole barn is. But why don't you want to fire it off? You want to start it?
Absolutely.
All right, anybody got any comments to make before we start this thing? Hit it.
So we're here at our men's coaching weekend, aka deer camp. We've been doing this for 21 years, and we're at Ebenezer Place. God helps. Comes out of 1 Samuel 7, and God helped the Israelites to defeat the Philistines, and we've been helping men at this place for now going into 21 years. And our weekend involves men being able to have a safe environment to where they can begin to tell the stories of their life that they've never told. And we've seen God use the confessional, the telling your story paradigm that he so clearly addresses in Scripture for men's life to be transformed, to be healed, and to be set free. In Isaiah 61, God Jesus read that passage, and it clearly states that which was available then, I believe is available to us now. And so we've been doing these weekends for 21 years, and we've seen God use this place. It's a sacred place. to bring healing to men.
Hi, my name is Clint Barr. I live in the reservoir area, but as you can tell from my accent, I'm not from Mississippi. I'm originally from Colorado and moved to Mississippi in 2005. I started coming to deer camp in 2010, about a year after I got involved in men's groups. And I've been coming for 11 years. I keep coming back because this is the place where I find life. It's the place where I experience Jesus with skin on, and I experience real grace and acceptance. And I can just lay everything out there, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And by doing so, I learn more about myself, who I really am, and who God created me to be. And I think that that is the design that was originally created for us men, was to sit with other men and learn from sages and kings on how to become a man. And that's what this place does for me. I'm now a proud father of 2 little girls, and if it was not for my time spent here at deer camp, I don't think I'd be the father I am today. So I'm excited to come here every single deer camp, 6 times a year. Obviously, you're not expected to come every single time, but the more I come back, the more I grow. I experience something new each time, and God reveals something to me about myself that He's wanted me to know and why He loves me. I'm excited for the future of this place. I've seen it grow from 2 little cabins and a small deck to now 3 cabins and a large pavilion and a shower and a bathroom building as well. And I'm really excited about the upcoming potential for the pole barn that will sleep 44 people, have a brand new kitchen, as well as an indoor meeting place, which we're going to need on some of those January days when it gets kind of cold and rainy here. So I'm excited to see what the future has to offer. I'm going to keep coming back. I love this place. I love the men that I sit with at this place, and I can't wait for you to experience it.
Hi, my name is George, and I am from Flowood, Mississippi, and I've been coming to deer camp since 2005, and it was a life changer from day one, and I kept coming back, and I've been coming back the whole time, and it changed my life. It changed how I experience God, and how I continue to experience God, not just inside of me, but through others, through the rest of the circle, and how valuable that's been in my life, how important that's been in my life, in my recovery, in my relationship with myself, my brothers, and with God. And I'm not going to stop coming until it's time not to come anymore.
Hey guys, I'm Roan Hunter. I've been coming to deer camp now for 13 years, and now help lead these along with Phil. And these weekends, it's just really amazing what happens. Phil and I always say we're just kind of riding shotgun and watching God do His work. And we talk about this place being holy ground because we have seen God work in men's hearts and lives change over a weekend, and guys beginning to move in a whole different direction. Men need other men. A man learns how to be a man by being with other men. Even if we had the best fathers, at some point the father has to hand the son over to the tribe. And many of us, fathering was shortchanged in our lives, and we didn't even get that initially. But so much of what we do, it really is this idea of being fathered by God. We've had it said about these weekends that it is intentional, masculine-driven integrity, where raw wilderness invites raw transparency that calls to the wildness of men's souls.
So what we want to do is put in a 6,000 square foot pole barn, and then on the inside of that pole barn, put in 2 bunkhouses, a bathroom, a kitchen that can accommodate us, because right now we're just operating in a small cabin with a couple of stoves and a little tiny sink. that would allow us to truly accommodate the 60 men that we've been working with for the last few years, but not able to sleep them. In the background are a couple of tents, because now the alumni sleep in their car, they sleep in tents, they sleep on the porch, they sleep in hammocks, on hooks in the pavilion, because all of the beds that we have now are for the new guys that come. And so the alumni will oftentimes even drive home to Madison and come back. What we want to be able to have is a facility that men can come and be here for the whole weekend, not only to learn and grow in their own life, but to support especially the pledge class, if you will, the new guys that are here. So we're excited about what could be, and we believe that it will facilitate a better opportunity for men to hear the gospel and to have their lives changed by the environment at Ebenezer Place.
All right, Phil, come on up. Please come. Take it away.
Thank you, Walter. Guys, I appreciate you being here. To God be the glory. To God be the glory. We are here because God has done a that 21 years ago, this would be the result of a time that I sat in Greg Gerhardt's office in Clinton. And we were in Greg's conference room. There we go. There we go. So 21 years ago, I was sitting in Greg Gerhardt's conference room leading a Bible study in Clinton. And I shared with the guys then the vision. I had seen Ebenezer Place before I saw it. I saw it with my imagination, with my eyes closed. And as we often talk about at Deer Camp, we've got to move more toward imagination. And imagination is the what if. It's walking by faith. It's seeing what God sees. It's seeing with the eyes of our heart rather than what we see visually. And I saw this place before it was Ebenezer Place. And I shared the vision, and John Perry got up from the table and he said, "Wait just a second." And he went and made a phone call, and he called a guy named Paul Enns, E-N-N-S. Many of you know Paul. I often call Paul the Yule Gibbons of our men's community. He could live on a banana and some pine cones for 3 weeks. I know he could. And Paul owned this place with 2 little cabins and a small deck. When he bought it, it was 10 acres, and it had the little tiny cabin on it. And he bought it, and he built the deck and the kitchen cabin. And he had been using it, and so John called him and he said, "I've got this guy that wants to do a men's retreat." And Paul said, "Come on." And we did our first men's coaching weekend in September of 2001. And it's grown tremendously because of you guys. And now we've had hundreds of guys go through the weekend at Ebenezer Place. And it's expanded physically, larger deck. Guys like Ralph and Gene Ganalda came up and built a porch shed over the kitchen cabin. That was the first construction that we ever did on the cabin. It was funny, one of the weekends that I did, when it rained all weekend, Jimmy Creekmore was part of that weekend, I remember, And we did the whole weekend under the little cabin porch. We were like 15 guys, shoulder to shoulder. And then we expanded and got a porch over the kitchen cabin. JW, where's JW? I remember JW was part of the weekend it rained all that weekend, and we had the kitchen cabin shed. And I remember Jesus showed up because JW was hands down surrendered to God right there in front of the kitchen cabin under that shed. It was an amazing weekend. So God has blessed us, and we are grateful. Ebenezer Place. 1 Samuel chapter 7. When the Philistines heard that Israel was meeting at Mizpah, the Philistine leaders went on the offensive. Israel got the report and became frightened. Philistines on the move again. And they pleaded with Samuel, pray with all your might and don't let up. Pray to God, our God, that he'll save us from the boot of the Philistines. And Samuel took a young lamb, not yet weaned, and offered it whole as a whole burnt offering to God. He prayed fervently to God, interceding for Israel, and God answered. And while Samuel was offering the sacrifice, the Philistines came within range to fight Israel. And just then, God thundered, a huge thunderclap exploding among the Philistines. Reminds me of George's joke, thunderclap. They panicked, mass confusion, and scattered before Israel. Israel poured out of Mizpah and gave chase, killing Philistines right and left to a point just beyond Bethkar. Samuel took a single rock and set it upright between Mizpah and Shin. He named it Ebenezer, Rock of Help, saying, this marks the place where God helped us. And guys, we named this property after we bought it a few years later, Ebenezer Place, Rock of Help. And most everybody in the room has experienced God at Ebenezer Place. 21 years, a place where men have been helped. Broken men like myself and like you. In 2013, one of the guys wrote me a letter after deer camp. And one of the great properties that I own or things that I have in my possession are the letters, comments, feedback from men like you that have experienced God at Ebenezer Place. I wanted to read to you this guy's letter. Dear Phil, I've been wanting to go to the men's coaching weekend, aka deer camp, all my life and never knew it until this past weekend because I didn't know deer camp was possible. The man who rode home with me yesterday, and I talked more as we rode on, at one point I started to say, next to my conversion, this is the best thing that has ever happened to me. I was about to say that, what I thought I should say, the good Christian thing, the theologically correct thing, deer camp is the best thing that has ever happened to me. I've always been Jesus's. My conversion was him letting me in on the secret. Deer camp was him showing me what being saved moment to moment looks like. What real men, the kind he's making, looks like. Lord knows what we will be when he's done, and thankfully he does know. I affirm again to you that the turning point for me came when you shared your story, and then Roan too. I could not believe my ears. You were honest about not just one, not two, not three, but 4 painful events, even failures in your life, about the shame, the hurt to you and others, the struggle to take responsibility, Embrace your own wounds and allow others room to heal. When I heard your story, I began to realize that I've barely moved from, quote, no strikes and you're out, unquote, to, quote, one strike and you're out, quote, in relationships. In my experience, honesty equals desertion. So, one confession about anything sinks a relationship. I've kept my dear wife at an ocean's length from my true self for years. I hope to learn as I work with my issues how to live in the same state, the same home, the same bed with my wife. No surprise, old pains were waiting on me when I arrived home. The children ran to greet me, but my wife stood back. After parenting kids all weekend, she wanted to visit her best friend for some girl time. I could feel the spikes of rejection, out of proportion to the actual events, but striking me inside nonetheless. This morning, my wife and I had a tense phone conversation about money, a responsibility I haven't owned for years. In each situation, I immediately thought of old coping strategies. So, my old personal Jack Torrance from The Shining was waiting for me in Jackson with a few "here's Johnny" moments, but he's not through the door with the axe yet. With wonder-struck irony, I realized last night that yesterday was my dad's birthday. He would have been 85. So fitting that I can celebrate the birth of my biological father and the gift of 23 new Deer Camp fathers at the same time. If being with Jesus was anything like being with Deer Camp guys this weekend, no wonder the disciples died for Jesus as he died for them. My fathering has already been affected by the men's coaching experience. I corrected my daughter last night about asking a question repeatedly, but I spoke a bit harshly. Her feelings were hurt. I looked her in the eyes and said, "I'm sorry, and I love you." She nodded, and then out of nowhere I said, "I'm glad you're here." She looked at me with a strange smile and said, "I know." To which I replied, "I know you know, but I wanted you to hear me say it. I'm glad you're here." Two verses I'm holding on to from the weekend, Romans 5:20. God's grace is furious and relentless. It has kicked, does kick, and will kick the hell out of sin. Isaiah 61, 1 through 4. God builds on and out of my life's wreckage. I have to deal with the ruin, but I don't have to get rid of it. I'm willing now to consider that the wreckage just might be part of Plan A. These verses are where I chose a tiny oak as my zakar, my remembrance. God's at work growing something out of what I've always wanted to hide. I've done a pretty good composting job with my life, so God's got a lot of rich ground to grow stuff in. You guys are some crazy, godly, broken, manly brothers. I'm glad to be one of you. If heaven is anything like Deer Camp, I think I'm going to like it. With brotherly and fatherly love. A man who needs other men. Guys, many of you have written things like this through the years. This is what Deer Camp is about. It's about men's lives being changed. It's much more than a physical place. Much more than a physical place. Ron and I were at the American Association of Christian Counselors conference this past week. And 5,000 counselors and counselor wannabes were there, more than 5,000. We heard inspiring things. I feel incredibly energized and recharged. And I also feel a little bit like an ant in a buffalo stampede. I feel small compared to so many of the speakers and things that we were exposed to this past weekend. I know that God has given us a little part of his kingdom to steward, and I want to do the best job that I can. Even when I feel like an ant in a buffalo stampede, I want to do my part. In Ebenezer Place, is what my life is about, I believe. Anticipating tonight has created a lot of anxiety for me. I stand before you with lots of fear and lots of anxiety. I'm thinking, why in the wide world of sports do I want to do tonight? You know, if this were a normal guys' men's night out, there would be no anxiety. I'd show up and, man, I'm ready to go. But this scares me because I'm asking you guys to take a deeper ownership. That this is not about me. It's not about Ron, not about George. It's about the Lord Jesus and his work in many, many more men's lives that are yet to be at Ebenezer Place. I want the physical aspect of Ebenezer Place to be at its highest quality. We've taken 2 little cabins that Paul Inns provided for us, and we have built on what God's given us, and the work is not finished. I sat with a young counselor, and she is recently divorced. She has 5 children, and she's 37 years old. 37-year-old with 5 kids and divorced. She's been divorced for 2 years. I said, I want your ex-husband to come to deer camp. And she says, I love him, and I want him to come. I want that guy at Ebenezer Place. I talked to a pastor that's asked me to come and speak in Destin. Doug Wilson set me up, and Doug is a good friend. Of course, many of you know Doug, and Doug set me up with this pastor, and he calls me, and I step out of the meeting in Orlando, and he's kind of vetting me to see who I am and if I love Jesus or not. And he asked me, he said, well, if we let you come and speak to our men, what will you share? And I started talking, and I told him, I said, Pastor Mike, I love Jesus. And if you want me to come, I'll share how men are seeking intimacy and how men have never experienced intimacy. They've heard about Jesus and they've heard about God, but they've never experienced in church or in an environment Jesus with skin on it. And I went on and I talked for another 10 minutes or so, and he said, we want you to come. And I want to know more about your men's ministry. And I said, Pastor Mike, I said, if you allow me to come and speak, your men will want to come to Ebenezer Place. And I want Ebenezer Place to be a place that physically Pastor Mike and his men can be easily accommodated in. The years that we've spent has resulted in 2 books. Many of you have read and know about Lions Are Born to Roar, and it simply just goes through what we teach on Friday night. And then the most recent book that just came out is Be the Lion. And it goes through the 10 guidelines. And you can pick up a copy back here on the table tonight. But guys, I believe that if we make Ebenezer Place a more accommodating physical place for men, then it will be more attractive and more of a magnet, not only for us to continue to use it, but many, many other men. My prayer and my vision at this point is not just a place, but a weekly accommodating of men's coaching weekends every weekend of the year. I believe that can happen. I believe that not only our use of Ebenezer Place as we continue to do our ministry, but there's other guys here, and you're going to hear from some of them later, that they will be using it. Churches, other men's groups will be using Ebenezer Place. I love closing on Saturday night after a long day at Ebenezer Place with Genesis chapter 28. And many of you know this passage because I've shared it as we close out Saturday evening when we prepare to eat dinner. And it's about Jacob. Jacob was one of the most broken men in all of Scripture. And it says in Genesis chapter 28, Jacob left Beersheba and went to Haran. He came to a certain place. Came to a certain place. Just a place. And he camped for the night since the sun had set. And he took one of the stones there. He set it under his head and lay down to sleep. And he dreamed. A stairway was set on the ground, and it reached all the way to the sky. And angels of God were going up and down on it. And then God was right there before him, saying, I am God, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. I'm giving the ground on which you are sleeping to you and to your descendants. Your descendants will be as the dust of the earth, and they'll stretch from west to east and from north to south. All the families of the earth will bless themselves in you and your descendants. Yes, I'll stay with you. I'll protect you wherever you go, and I'll bring you back to this very ground. I'll stick with you until I've done everything I promised you. And Jacob woke up from his sleep, and he said, God is in this place truly, and I didn't even know it. He was terrified. He whispered in awe, incredible, wonderful, holy, this is God's house. This is the gate of heaven. And in your study Bible, it says, Jacob called this an awesome place. How does a certain place become an awesome place? It's when God shows up. And gentlemen, I believe that Ebenezer Place has God's breath on it, in a certain place in Holmes County, Mississippi, has become an awesome place because he is the rock of help for many men. And I want you to help me make a certain place that has become an awesome place be a better place. That's why you've been invited here tonight, to make this certain place that has become an awesome place a better place. I want to ask Colin Baird to come up, and Colin and I want to share with you a little bit about the vision that we see happening. And Colin is a land surveyor. He knows how to measure things, something like that. And he and Lynn, and Lynn's not able to be here, and I know Lynn is just regretting not being able to be here because he's stuck doing a job down in New Orleans. But Colin and I are going to try to do Lynn justice and share a little bit about the vision. So Colin, tell them what we're hoping and praying for.
Yeah, so this is just for our video. This is what you need to look at. Yeah, so Lynn and I sat with Bill. Lynn and I sat with Bill and heard his vision for this and the growth of it. And that's kind of where I come in. That's my work. I use my imagination to create things like this, buildings, layouts, things like this as a civil engineer and land surveyor. And yeah, the first deer camp I came to as a land surveyor, I just saw a bunch of trees and old buildings and, not a very special place. But man, after that first weekend, I just want to echo what everybody's been saying. It is a special place. It's you guys who make it. God is there. And so yeah, I want to point back here to the table. We created a site plan, and you can see the location of the new bull barn. It's 6,000 square feet, which is huge. I think we could add up all the buildings there right now, plus the pavilion, it wouldn't be this big. So it's a really big facility. There's 2,400 square foot meeting place in the middle, 2 bunk rooms, 22 people each, and the kitchen in the back's an industrial commercial kitchen. So there's ADA compliance in there, and so it's a really, really nice facility. But one of the things I saw when I was there is there's freaking no place to park, and so bad problem. So if you look on the site plan, we created 66 parking spaces, and it follows the cemetery line. And so that was a big deal, is to get people parking in place. And so yeah, if you go back there, and I got the layout of the building in there, of all the buildings and everything, all the rooms, and the site plan showing where it is. This building's going to be on the in between Jorge's and the bathhouse. It's kind of back there, but we want to connect everything. So just improve everything, connect everything, make things nicer and cleaner, and yeah, I just invite you to go look at that and just look at it and see what you think.
I so much appreciate all the work that Colin and Lynn have done on this. And again, you can look at the drawings. But this is going to be a team effort. It's not going to happen without every man participating. So, Walter?
All right, so Phil asked that we take 10 minutes and get with your neighbor there and 4, 5, 6 in a group and tell about your experience at deer camp. Now, not everybody's been to deer camp here, so those will get to hear about it. So you can gather around where you are, or you can stand up and stretch, and we'll come back with the hanger guys in 10 minutes. Do it. See you guys.
Hell yeah. Dude, Lewis hooked me up when I bought Ebenezer. Oh, okay. The new one. Oh, yeah. Very nice. Dude, I went to pick it up. He had the red bow. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was beautiful. That's right, dude. I mean, he helped me sell it to her.
Okay, let's start, guys. Here we go. We're on time. Just curious, how many men in this room have not been to deer camp yet? Let's see your hand. So you guys who've been might be looking for the hands and go out and talk to them. Tell them about it. All right, so the hanger guys, come on up. And while they're coming up, I want to thank Cobb for letting us come see his great spot, and Stephen for all the food. He made a big contribution. And next time you go through Hattiesburg and you think you want to go to Ed's Burgers, don't. Go to Outback. And let's give him a little business. Huh? Come on. Woo-hoo! All right, wait, I got a question. So what happens when Phil's not around or he retires? What happens to his ministry?
But we are the hanger guys that they've been introducing us as. And yeah, Phil asked us to come and talk about what we're doing and how deer camp has impacted us. So I'm Neil, Steven, got Sam over here. We've all been to deer camp, and I think when we were sitting in our little circle, one of the things that we talk about when I hear people talk about how deer camp impacted them, I hear kind of some of the same things over and over, that it was a safe place that I didn't know existed. It was a life changer. It was, I can't imagine what type of man I'd be if I hadn't gone to deer camp. And that was a lot of the same things that I was hearing again as we were talking in our groups. And it's been so impactful for us having going to deer camp. I think we all went about the same time. started and had going on is this ministry called the Hanger, and we've got men here from our hanger groups that have never been to a deer camp, and we're putting on our own version of deer camp called Hanger Weekend out at Ebenezer Place coming up in the end of October. First one, we're really excited to do it out there. And Bill and Roan, you know, they're two men and they only have so much time, and I think the need for the men to come to deer camp is a lot greater than what two men can bear. So we're really excited about using it, and I'll let Steve and Sam, you want to talk a little bit about that weekend and how deer camp's been to y'all?
All right, so George, when did I go to deer camp? You know. I think it was 16. I think it was. That sounds about right.
So, you know, for me, I have a very addictive personality. So when somebody tells me something's fun and good and I need to go to it, I'm all in. So what I didn't realize is what I was really walking into was about to change my entire life. My dad passed in 13, and you know, this is not something I was able to share with him, because as most men grow up, they know nothing and are taught nothing about intimacy or being open and honest about their feelings, and my dad was no different. So I didn't know how to share my feelings and how to be intimate with another man. I sure could be intimate with a woman, or at least I thought I was being. So when I walked into deer camp, I was in for a shot. You know, I had to you know, tell my story. And, you know, I was sitting there through the weekend trying to figure out really what my story was. You know, one of the most impactful things was having Roan and Phil and all the deer camp alumni and the guys that were going through the first weekend with me, because the support was there. Because it's scary when you first tell your story. Shoot, it's scary when you tell it for the 20th time sometimes. But it's scary when you first are vulnerable with other men. But what has gotten me to where I am today, and us putting together the Hanger, is we want to be able to share this with more men. Phil and Roan, I mean, they do an incredible job, but there's still men out there that have no idea who Phil and Roan are, or deer camp, or anything like that. So that's where we come in to help grow the ministry. And so we're really excited. We have had many, many meetings. A lot of hours have been put into it. Ben Derrick, he's the pastor out there at Vertical. He came up with the Hanger and the Hanger ministry and passed it on to us. And so he is
involved, but he's behind the scenes involved, which he'll be at the weekend and all that, but he's passed it on to me and Sam and Neil. So we're going to, try and just do our best with it. The one thing we did figure out very quickly is there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. So, we are leaning on Phil, Roan, and we need you, Deer Camp alumni, to help us. We need your support. We need the expertise and the feedback on our weekends. So we'd love to have you. I'll let Sam tell you how you can sign up online. He knows a little bit more about that than I do. But anyway, that's, for me, it's been life-changing. I don't know where I would be. Well, I can imagine where I would be without Deer Camp, without the community. But something that inside of my SEAL team and my hangar group that meets in my driveway, we say all the time, it's like, I don't know how I could have gone through that 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I mean, it would have just been a disaster, but now I have men that come around me that aren't, that love me, and I don't have to go and do this with my wife. There's plenty of stuff that she's there for, but the stuff for me being a man and the validation I need has to come from you guys. Jesus was skin on. So thank y'all, all of y'all, for fathering me and being the father that, I don't have anymore. So.
Okay. Stephen wanted me to hook it to my chest hair, but there's no chest hair. Not on purpose, by accident. I think, Roan, you were personally offended when Stephen said that not many people know you.
I'm just saying, we got to talk.
When I showed up at Deer Camp, well, I'll first tell you how I showed up at Phil's office. I lived with no moral compass or religious framework as a child, lived life as a heathen, wide open, bankrupt, dropped out of college, and my girlfriend was pregnant at 20. And then I thought to fix my sexual brokenness, and as I had found Jesus in my early 20s, I was like, well, I just need to get married, and then I'll not struggle with this ever again. And it made it worse, as you can imagine, and some of you may have experienced. And as it got worse, I felt like a bigger fraud and fake than ever before, because I started to learn and grow spiritually and have this desire to change, but I didn't have the tools and I didn't know how. And so one night, I confessed fully and completely to Kelly Jo, not the way I would prescribe it or would have been coached to do it, but that's the way I did. And Jesus in the flesh through my wife did a miraculous thing to my heart and my soul that night. Fast forward from that moment, years ahead, and my wife is anorexic and suicidal and depressed. And I had no idea that she was. And I was sitting with her and realized at our office and business that she was lying to me. And so I asked her, after I asked everybody to leave the office and just sat with her, I said, honey, what's wrong? And then she fully confessed to me what she'd been hiding from me, a project that had gone sideways that had cost us a ton of money that she was hiding from me because she didn't know how to even say to me where she was. And so we go to Phil's office and we're sitting on his couch. And I'm not the brightest guy in the world. I'm a bit wooden and thick, as I get told over and over again, and it's true. I admit it and confess it. And I look at Kelly Jo and I said to her, I really just, you have forgiven me and showed me so much grace as my wife. I forgive you. And I want you to see and understand and experience God's grace the way that you've allowed me and helped me understand it and see it. And I just want you to get better. Don't you know how much He loves you? And that was pretty much the dialogue and what it sounded like. And Phil looked at me and he said, it's about 2 sessions in. I've seen this guy and we've met maybe half a dozen times. He said, damn, Sam, You are too intense. And that was the beginning of me realizing how my desire and lust for more, just in life and life in general, how it was crushing my wife. And I then started to see and realize how I'd mistreated her and how I'd not loved her well. And so next, Phil says, come to deer camp. You really need to come sit in the circle. And I didn't say this to him, but I said this to my brothers. It's like, I sit with this guy every week. I don't need to go pay to go to another weekend and sit in the circle. And then these guys went first. They came back in one of our groups and said, Sam, you got to go. And I went. And I had no idea what I was missing. The power of the group, the power of you men, you sages that have gone before us, that have impacted thousands and thousands. And the ripple effects across eternity will be much greater than what we can see, experience, and understand. And so as we continue to do the work, we continue to sit in the circle, to sit with you men, we have realized that we want this ministry to survive for generations to come. Not just for this time and place, not just for our children and our children's children, but there are so many men out there that are just like every one of us. That's what we find on the deck in the circle. We find, hey, I'm not alone. I'm just a man, and you're just a man. And so we have this great desire to offer this to the masses. You know, not every man's going to say yes. How many men have we invited over the years, all of us, and that say no? But we want to give them an invitation. And we want to offer them a place and a space to come where they can get connected and they can actually start to be known and they can start to be loved even in all of their transparency and brokenness and sinfulness. And we've learned that, or continually learning that about ourselves. There are guys like Ron, Phil, Doug, and Ben who started the hangar, and so many of you men that have paved and laid the foundation of the work. So we go to Phil and we go to Ron and we say, look, we want to offer this to more men, to the heathens, to the religious, to the Pharisees, to the heathens. We want to offer it to them. And I was expecting like an Amway for Jesus or something like that, right? Or maybe like a club that I could join, pay a monthly due or membership. And what these two men did instead was they said, here you go. Go. And so we have tried, and we are trying, and we are going, and we keep organizing and arranging these coaching weekends. So many of you come and help us and join us in that work. And we actually have a vision and a desire to offer it to the generations to come and to the masses. And we see and understand what a special place Ebenezer is and has been to us, and how important it is to have that safe laboratory, the beginning of the work, where we can include and invite more men, and then we can continue to be discipled and coach and grow, but then also coach and help others grow as well and get connected through the coaching weekends, in the circle weekly, and through SEAL teams and accountability groups on a weekly basis too. So I guess the last thing I'll say is thank you for the work that you've done, because how you've invested in this ministry and how you've invested in me is helping me see and understand God's unending love in a way that I knew in my head, but it is starting to get pressed down into my heart in a way that I actually can feel it and understand it. And so thank you. And I'm very grateful for all of you men that have committed to this ministry over the years and the generations, and help us take it to all of the generations to come. Thank you. Thank you, brother.
Ron, where are you? All right, so we don't have much longer tonight. Ron's going to speak. We're going to ask us to have the commitment cards to pass them out. And we'll do that after Ron. And then anybody that would like to come up and during that time of us collecting the cards and tallying, if you'd like to come up and tell your story, this is what the mic is for. Now, we aren't going to go on all night, are we? No. Ron.
Unless revival breaks out, it might happen. I don't know.
Play that piano.
Motor might start playing the piano. certainly appreciate the opportunity to just share with you guys and talk about just the vision. This pledge, commitment that we're asking, it's not about a facility. It's not about a building. It's about changing the lives and hearts of men. I was involved in men's ministry for years and recovery ministry and all those things when we lived in Atlanta. And when I moved here and met Phil just by chance, it was God's ordained meeting. It was like spirit meets spirit. And he's telling me about what he did and what he does and the men's stuff. And I was like, okay, Duck, Junebug, I'm in, right? And having the privilege to lead these weekends with Phil, and I always say, we're just riding shotgun. Watching what God does in men's lives in these weekends is just, there's nothing greater. The glory of God is a man fully alive. And that's what we get to experience. And many of you have experienced that. And it's not just the weekend, right? It's the ongoing groups that meet like every stinking night of the week. Guys that have been and that are now expanding the kingdom of God. It's truly discipleship in a relational way. Not just learning some knowledge, reading more Bible. I did all of that. And that's just a dead end. Read your Bible, right? We know that. But if you want to change, if you want to grow, the only way that's going to happen is when you begin to practice relationship, when you begin to experience true intimacy, and you're able to look another man in the eye and say, dude, I love you. I'm with you. We're in this together. Now that's what Jesus taught. The 3 goals on the Christian journey. Number 1 is to become a great lover. That's who Jesus was. That's what we're experiencing at Deer Camp. Number 2, to become whole and holy. You spell that holiness, WHOLINESS, because those 2 things are not separable. You can't have one without the other. There's no such thing as spiritual growth. Growth is growth. It's all connected. And number 3, to become my true self in Christ. Who am I? What kind of man do I want to be? Who do you want to be? The only way we figure that out is by being with other men, seeing it reflected in the eyes of another, hearing a guy speak into your heart when you're at your lowest place. That's what this investment is about. It's not about a building. And those of you that have been to Deer Camp, I mean, it's really a Deer Camp, right? It ain't the Hilton. We need to upgrade a little bit. And that's what this is about, is a place where guys can actually kind of have some room and not have to fight the spider webs and the squirrel piss and the rat piss and around the bunks. We need a little bit better place. So guys feel like, man, this is a special place when they first walk into it. That's what this is about. The acronym that I often use about growth is just simply called vision, intention, and means. You've got to have a vision for your life. We've talked about it, that we have a vision for this place and what it's all about. And then you've got to get intentional about that vision. Your heart, your spirit, and will have to get aligned with God's intention for your life, God's will. And then you've got to put the means to it. That's where the rubber meets the road. And it's like this commitment, this pledge, what we're asking for is the means to actually have what God has offered us. It's so interesting. We've had guys, I don't know, some of you were probably there a guy named John Sowers. He and I connected through a mutual friend. John wrote a book called The Heroic Path. He worked with Billy Graham Ministries for years, had done men's ministry all over the country. John came and we sponsored it, and he spoke at Fondren Church. And then the next morning, our group normally meets on Friday morning at Corner Bakery. Of course, we don't meet there anymore because it's closed. Thank you, COVID. And John came to our group, and I just had the guys share about their experience in our community, in Deer Camp, and in the groups that we're all a part of. And at the end of that, we just went around the room and guys talked. He says, I've done men's ministry all over the world, certainly all over the country. He said, I don't think I've ever sat in a men's group with the level of honesty and transparency and sharing that I experienced here today. And we've had many others at that level that talk about it like that. Guys, it is church. Now, Phil gets nervous when I start talking about church. I'm sorry, Phil. You'll be all right. Take another Quaalude. I went to a wedding this summer, and it was in a big church. And behind the pulpit is just this stained glass picture, and it's the picture of Jesus holding his little therapy lamp. Everybody know that picture? And dude, I sit there and I look at that, and honestly, it's just like a little bit of vomit comes up. I have to kind of push it back down. Because that ain't the Jesus that I love. That's not the Jesus that I follow. That mamby-pamby sweet Jesus thing, that's why the church is the way it is today. I can drive to my office, and if I go a certain way, not way out of my way, I can pass 9 damn churches. And I look at our culture, and I sit with people in these churches every stinking day. And I don't know what we're doing, but it's something, but I don't know what it is. But when I come to man church, and like, this is freaking man church, right? Ain't no stained glass, ain't no mamby-pamby Jesus. This is real. And Deer Camp is that. It is real. We've seen guys share things that they've never, ever shared with another human being. Sitting in a circle of guys that they have just met. Now, guys, if that ain't God, I don't know what it is. Jesus is there. He loves it because that's what he did. He walked around with some dudes telling stories, sitting around a campfire with men. And that's what this is about. It is time for men to become men and begin to rise up and take back this stinking, stupid culture that we have abdicated. And it is, the world's just going to hell in a handbasket. And that's what this is about. What does it mean to really be a man? To be a great lover, to be whole and holy, and to become who Jesus created you to be. That's what this is all about. So, guys, you okay? Did
Quaalude's working.
And I love church. I always say, man, I've been involved in church since the day I came to Jesus when I was 20 years old. I'm still involved in church. You need to be involved in church because you need to be working to change it. It is broken. And we need men speaking up, standing up, rising up. And the way you learn how to do that is you develop your SEAL team. You get other guys that are moving in the same direction and on the same mission. And that's what this is about. Thank you, guys. But,
All right, cards, pass them out. All right, so if you'd like to make a contribution, please do.
Everybody gets a pledge card.
All right, everybody gets a card that you can fill it out, and then the people who pass them out will pick them up in just a minute. We don't get this opportunity very often to make a commitment. And so the commitment can be, you can look at the numbers on there and see what fits your budget. We don't want to limit it in any way. Some people have a big budget for this. And one thing that I learned many, many years ago, you cannot outgive God.
So true. Thank you, Walter. Thank you. You know, that was a very passionate plea by my brother Roan, and I loved every minute of it. Now, I'll tell you, I'm going to speak to those that might be a little dead in here, okay? That's who I'm going to be speaking to. Hopefully, God will add life to my words to you. How does a man change? Well, I'll tell you, there's a little prayer given by Steve Smith, also known as the Red Green Show.
Did you get yours?
Anyway, Red Green had, there was a show, and they had a men's lodge that they met every week, and they would meet, and they would say the man prayer. And it went something like this. Everybody bow your heads. I am a man. I can change. If I have to, I guess. Amen. Well, if I have to, if you are in Jesus, you better get cranked up on that transformational piece, okay? Because no one gets to see God without holiness. Nobody. So, how does that happen? I learned a Bible word decades ago, sanctification. I even taught it in Sunday school, okay? I used that word sanctification, and I gave 8 weeks of lessons on sanctification. And you know what? I didn't know what I was talking about because I had not engaged that transformational piece. It's got to be a deliberate thing. And I didn't know anything about deliberate, intentional actions until I met this man right here. Deliberate, intentional actions. And I didn't know that identity was not just tied to Christ, but it was tied to other men looking at me, telling me who I was, instead of telling them who I was. So that's how it worked for me. Now you might think, well, I'm in a good place in my life. I don't need deer camp. You may not need deer camp, but our prayer for you is that we pray and we hope that you would want it. Because this thing called transformation has to work out of desire. It cannot work if you should and ought yourself there. It just doesn't work. And when I first came to deer camp in 2005, I was in a bad place. I'm in a better place now. And I've had many different seasons of my life. And it doesn't matter what season of life that you're in, whether it be good, bad, ugly, or wonderful. I'm telling you that you need deer camp. Whether or not you call yourself by the name of Christ, you need this. Because if you don't have a place to call your own, a safe place where you can share everything that you must share, you're never going to change. It just doesn't work that way. I tried it. I tried it the passive way. It just doesn't work. But this, not only does it work, but you will have fun at it. Now, I've been through many seasons of my life ever since I've first come to deer camp. And I've been in good places, and when I'm at good places, I can sit in the circle and still be edified. If I'm in a horrible place, I can sit in the circle and still be edified. And I don't even have to say a single word. All I got to do is engage, listen with my pen, and something's about to happen. You know why? Because God is in the mix. He is the one that adds life to this thing. It's not just us. It's the Almighty Himself that shows up on the deck, and that's why I keep coming back. I see men's eyeballs turn from gray or black to white. They can see again, and I can see life in them. And that's why I keep coming back, and I'm not going to stop coming back until this heart until this heart stops ticking. Thank you.
We are going to tally it up, aren't we, guys? Shortly. Who else would like to grab the mic?
We have an ink pen short.
You have a what?
Ink pen short.
Ink pen. Joe Barlow?
Joe Barlow.
This is for.
Good morning.
This is for recording.
Welcome to Men's Roundtable. Glad you're here.
Stick that in your pocket, will you?
Stick that in my pocket. Morning. Guys, I'll be brief. I'll be brief. It was before you bought Ebenezer that I experienced deer camp. And during a very difficult time of my life. And meeting on Monday nights, the 12 weeks after that, as a follow-up at that time, Phil talked about hoping that that group of guys would begin to ripple out to other men that would take part and take ownership in deer camp and expand that circle. Now I'm going to talk to those that have been with deer camp for a while. Yeah, I was with the group when we added onto the porch, and I was there when you poured hot water in the little bucket if you wanted a bath that Paul designed in a little outhouse, and was there the weekend that we almost burned it down because we had too much bacon cooking on a cookie sheet on an open fire and just barely got it out of the house. But I've continued to invest in deer camp, and Phil has asked for money before. And I want to say, I've heard guys say, you know, I've given before. I just don't understand why Phil keeps asking for more. For me personally, let me answer that. Out of that desire that other men would take ownership in it, I'm incredibly proud to say one of my boys is in one of those groups. Tried to get him to come on Thursdays, and that just wasn't quite his deal. But Stephen and Sam, thank you, brothers. Thank you for fathering my son in a way I couldn't father him. So yes, I'm reinvesting again tonight. Thank you, brothers.
I want to say I represent two things. One is the BPO International. I'm the Indian part of it, not the feather, the dot Indian. I came through the church, Redeemer Church. They have their own deer camp, which is called Reclamation Weekend. That's what brought me to. When I first went, I was like, man, this is the most awesomest experience I ever had. It's like somebody is cooking somebody else's recipe, and it's like, if you guys, like, where did you guys learn about this? They're like, well, you need to go to the real deer camp if you want to have the real thing. So that's what brought me to the real deer camp. Ever since then, I think I probably missed 2 deer camps. This is about 6 years ago. It's been a life-changing thing. God has been truly blessed me. My brother-in-law, or ex-brother-in-law, came to deer camp, I think, in 2006. I was kind of mad at him because he's like, why didn't you tell me about this 2006, like 10 years ago or something? My life would have been changed. I mean, I'm thankful I came in 2015, but I kind of miss, what it would have been if I came a lot earlier. My generation, my children, my wife, my marriage, everything has been truly blessed. I lost a daughter, Rebecca, in 2003. I always blame myself for it. A lot of, like my sin, my addiction, my struggles and everything. So coming to deer camp, I kind of experienced Jesus' grace, forgiveness, mercy, that it's not my sin that took my daughter away. And I also have another daughter, Lydia, who's also going through a similar thing. And until I came, I always blame myself, like, it's my sin that, took Rebecca, and it's my sin that's causing Lydia's sickness. It is not, and I know. And it's been through sitting in many deer camps, God has delivered me from my own brokenness. The greatest thing happened to me is it's an 18-inch journey from head to my heart. God has really made it happen at deer camp. So thank you, Phil, and thank you, Ron.
Time for one more.
All right.
Ricky Davis.
Yelfie, I'm good, Yelfie.
That's
I'm all
all
right. It's okay, Yelfie. There you go.
About your leg.
Hey, I'm not about to try to follow some of these guys, but I'll tell you something that happened to me at the last year camp, which was not even 2 weeks ago. My 40-year-old son came. And some of you guys, and I'm going to hit on this, there's been enough hit on the other. Some of you are here old enough to have children to be there. And you need to get them there. And that's all I'm going to say. You know you do. And yes, it was hard. It took me about 3 years. So if you're not working on it, you need to get to work. Thank you. All right. George likes quick feedback. Yep. We got a number over there, guys? Do we need a drum roll? Drum roll. You want to, you got anything you want to say? Well, this has been a great night. It's been a super night. You got that on? Yep.
This on, Jeff? Guys, I would say, just before the guys tally up the pledges, that one of the things that I want you to understand about Deer Camp is that we really believe our discipleship model is a relational model and not a content model. And in our book, Be the Lion, that has just come out that I mentioned earlier, this book goes through the 10 guidelines that are the lime on the playing field for deer camp, as we call it. And so the chapters in the book are those 10 guidelines. And then chapter 11 goes through how to do a deer camp. If you just picked up a book and you were a pastor or a lay leader and you wanted to do a deer camp, you give the indications of how to do that. And then chapter 12 is about where's your men? Who are you being responsible for? Chapter 13, I left out. And I regret leaving it out because I just failed to write that chapter, but I'm going to write it. And chapter 13 would be, what is our model? And what our model is a relationship model of discipleship versus a content model. And what I mean by that is that when you sit in the circle, all of you that have been at Deer Camp, it's an amazing experience when a guy shares his life and then we insert the scriptures. It's like a healing balm as opposed to kind of a top-down sort of approach to where we're going to teach you all the scripture and you don't see the need for half of it. It's like you're being prepared for a Bible trivia contest that's going to break out in the parking lot. That's never happened. And I believe that's Jesus's model. I believe that Jesus sat around the fire talking to these guys, and these guys sharing their life. And as they opened their life up, Jesus kept inserting his word into their lives. And that's what I believe is the beauty of Deer Camp and why we see the transformation take place that we do. It is a model that Jesus portrays in Scripture, and we want to continue to do that in a way that builds his kingdom. And I'm so grateful for every man that's here and the men through 21 years of kingdom building. And my prayer is that 21 more years and plus continue way after I've got oatmeal running down my chin and I'm in the nursing home. And so thanks for coming tonight. And Walter's going to close our time.
Hey, and it's not that long till that oatmeal is coming, is it? All right, 47,550. 47,550. Thank you. Thank everyone. All right, we're done. Are we done? Thank you, guys. Put the music on. We're done.
Thank you, guys.